So chances are that you've heard about George Santos by now, the Republican congressman-elect from New York who lies so much that even Trump must be thinking, dude should probably relax a little bit. Now, just to give a quick rundown, just in case by some miracle you haven't had the opportunity to hear about the laundry list of lies that Santos was caught telling, he said he earned a degree from Baruch College in New York. He didn't graduate from any college. He said he worked for Citigroup and Goldman Sachs. Didn't work for either. He said he was Jewish, which he later clarified to mean that he was Jew-ish. He said that his grandparents fled Jewish persecution in Europe during World War II. His grandparents weren't so much from Europe as they were from Brazil. He claimed to have lost 4 employees in the 2016 Pulse nightclub shooting. None of the victims were associated with any of his firms. He claimed to be a landlord. He's not, and he's been evicted from his own rental properties. He claimed to be openly gay, and yet he was married to a woman until a few years ago. But then came this lie. On July 12, 2021, he tweeted, "9/11 claimed my mother's life, so I'm blocking so I don't have to ever read this again," suggesting that his mother died on September 11, 2001. Then in December of the same year, he tweeted again, "December 23rd this year marks 5 years I lost my best friend and mentor. Mom, you will live forever in my heart." Now suggesting that she died on December 23rd, 2016. Now, I don't know what day she passed away, but one thing I'm sure about is that September 11, 2001 is not the same as December 23rd, 2016. And beyond that, my God, I mean, look, I can't imagine lying about my job, my education, my religion, my sexuality, and on, but I really cannot imagine leveraging the death of my mother to score whatever cheap political point I'm trying to score. Trust me when I say you have to be severely disconnected from reality to do that. And look, I'm no detective, but couldn't hurt to check the basement. Now, to be fair, I've been trying to figure out how this could be construed to be true. Maybe she was in New York on 9/11 and suffered from a respiratory disease that took her life 5 years later, not completely out of the question. Well, according to Rolling Stone, Santos had claimed that his mother was, quote, in her office in the South Tower on September 11, 2001, and passed away a few years later when she lost her battle to cancer. So, okay, plausible that she was there and died of a 9/11 related respiratory illness. Well, Rolling Stone dug deeper. Quote, despite Santos' assertion that his mother worked within the World Trade Center, Rolling Stone could find no employment records that would place Mrs. DeVolder in or around the towers on September 11th. According to NBC News, DeVolder's only known employment was a Queens-based company that closed in 1994. A New York Times investigation found that DeVolder's main source of income was as a nurse and domestic worker. Rolling Stone then looked into the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund that Congress created with over $7 billion to disperse to those affected by the attacks. The fund would allow survivors and victims' families to access compensation for those with adverse health effects. Rolling Stone was unable to identify any records indicating that Santos' mother filed a compensation claim. And John Feel, the founder and president of the 9/11 First Responder Victims Advocacy Organization, the Feel Good Foundation, also revealed that he found no record of any victims' compensation fund or enrollment in the World Trade Center health program for her either. He said, quote, the search was extensive, he's lying, nobody can verify it. Of course, George Santos would be the one who'd be able to verify it, but when asked for evidence to back up his claims, he declined to respond on the record or provide any corroboration for his claims. When it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it's probably George Santos lying again. And consider too, there will be people who say on this specific claim, Santos deserves the benefit of the doubt. Why? At what point do you relinquish your right to getting the benefit of the doubt? Because look, I get that this is all subjective, but I'm pretty sure that when you lie about your degree, your job, your religion, your coworkers' deaths, and your ancestors, people probably aren't going to believe you when it looks like you're claiming that your own mother died on 2 entirely separate occasions. And look, yes, it's possible that he just issued some seemingly contradictory tweets that were simply poorly worded, but it's more likely that the guy who sociopathically lies about everything also just sociopathically lied about this. And just on a human level here, I know that people will say a lot of shit to get elected. I know that they'll lie and embellish, but when you exploit the events of 9/11 and your own mother, that's beyond the pale for even slimy politicians. I wouldn't want to pass this person on the sidewalk, much less imbue them with any semblance of power at the federal level. And so now comes the especially pathetic part, because even though we can all see just how aggressively unqualified this guy is for office, because he's in a political party where lying seems to be a prerequisite, nothing will happen. I mean, hell, the leader of the House Republicans and likely next speaker, Kevin McCarthy, is so weak and desperate for votes that he's currently expected to put Marjorie Taylor Greene on the Oversight Committee. The Oversight Committee is tasked with accountability and ensuring government efficiency. Which is to say, the guy stands for nothing, so let's not expect him to stand up for another person who also stands for nothing. At this point, forget about McCarthy criticizing George Santos. It's more likely he puts him on the House Ethics Committee in exchange for his support. But while we're sure not to get any accountability from Kevin McCarthy, who would support childhood cancer if he thought it would help him become Speaker, there is one place that might bear fruit here. Here's Congressman-elect Daniel Goldman, who was also the lead impeachment counsel during Trump's first impeachment trial, calling for Santos to be investigated for campaign finance fraud.
Filings from the Florida Department of State showed a Volder organization was registered as an LLC in 2019, a couple months before Santos launched a bid for Congress a second time. They also show Santos filed for a reinstatement earlier this month, a day after the Times investigation broke.
Given all of his lying, was he also using this very new entity that all of a sudden increased his net wealth into the millions from having no net wealth in 2020? Was this created in order to avoid the campaign finance laws?
I suppose showing the entire world that you lie about everything tends to raise some red flags with regard to lying about campaign finance laws too. Who could have possibly guessed? So look, at the end of the day, here's all that this saga shows. That this is how low the GOP has fallen. This guy can lie about literally everything and know that there is so little accountability within the Republican Party that he'll most likely be seated and carry on in fine standing. Imagine that being the party you've created for yourselves. A party where the standards are so embarrassingly low that George Santos knows that it's unlikely that anything will happen in the wake of one of the biggest sham campaigns in modern American history. That's not just an embarrassment for him, it's an embarrassment for the entire Republican Party. But for as embarrassing as it is, one thing it's not is surprising. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. You can click the thumbnail right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work even further, the best way is to subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. There you can check out my interviews with major players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin, and so many more. Plus other interviews that live exclusively on the podcast. That link is also right here on this screen, or just search No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen wherever you listen to podcasts.